Whilst a father of one is away on a work trip, he is shocked to find out that his bright daughter and devoted wife were brutally killed in their own home. Join us in today's episode of the Lundy Murders, where we question, did the husband do it? Okay, let's go. On the morning of Tuesday, 29th of August 2000, Mark Lundy, 41, a small business owner, was on his way to his fortnightly sales trip to visit kitchen suppliers up in Wellington. Yes, as in New Zealand.
Wellington? I lived in Wellington.
Yeah, you did. You see, he was a father to a 7-year-old daughter named Amber, and he'd been married to his wife, Christine, 38, for 17 years. They had met through scouting and now ran a small business from their home in Palmerston North.
Palmy,
Old
what
Palmy.
a shithole.
So their business was where they supplied kitchen sinks and benches to their customers. You're like, that is not how we sound.
That's not how I sound. I have an Australian accent. I don't know
I'm going to
what
get
you're
an
talking
inbox
about.
from Gemma.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. She does like to, when I try to put on like a Kiwi accent, she likes to correct me.
Yeah.
But it's because I don't have one. I know, I just don't have one anymore.
So unfortunately, as a small business, they were often in debt, with the reported $100,000 owing to suppliers at one time. And in 1999, that sounds really old. We are so old. Mark thought he would expand that number by purchasing 2 plots of land to grow grapes in Hawke's Bay. Because, you know, treat yourself. And why not up that to like $2 million in debt?
Is he making a vineyard?
I think so. Anyway, let's head back to Tuesday morning. Mark is heading to Wellington, which was only 1 hour and 45 minutes away, roughly. The question
That's a big drive. Listen, that's a big drive for any New Zealanders. You ask a Kiwi to drive 10 minutes out of their way and they will say no.
To me, I was like, oh, that's nice and close.
Not to a Kiwi.
Yeah, Aussies are just like, 2 hours away. Okay, I'll see you soon.
Yeah, to a reasonable.
Yeah, it's wild.
I think it's just, geographically speaking, like New Zealand's so much smaller. So you expect things to be closer, whereas we live in Australia, pretty much every town's a coastal town.
Yeah.
To get somewhere, you have to drive.
I wonder how far. I should have looked at this.
Well, I know you can drive from Wellington to Auckland in 12 hours.
Oh, shit. That's all right. He made a few calls into his suppliers and then checked into his usual motel in Petone at around 5 p.m. By 5:30, he received a call from Christine, who was letting him know that Amber's guides group had been cancelled. So they were going to go to Macca's instead.
Macca's.
I know, nothing I loved more as a kid than going to Macca's.
I know.
When we were allowed to have it or had the money to have it.
Yeah.
And it was better back then.
It was so good back then.
Probably
now.
because it had so much shit in it.
But I think the difference is we can afford it so we can have it whenever we want it.
Yeah.
It's not a treat anymore.
Yeah.
That's just a Friday.
Yeah. It's just
And
a
a
normal
Thursday
day.
and a Wednesday and yeah.
Mark would later drive to Petone foreshore to read his book for a bit before heading back to the motel for some rum and TV.
Huh?
Good
You
old
go and read a
90s.
book
Apparently.
at the shore
Yeah.
and then go back for some rum and tally.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, right.
What
Balance.
a riveting man.
Balance. The following morning, around 9 a.m., Christine's brother headed to her house to see her in regards to a business matter as he tried calling her and she didn't pick up. Entering the house via the back entry. I know, but you're going to feel really bad in a
Go
minute.
through the back door? Is that what we're going to say?
I nearly wrote the back door and then I was like, we can't say that because the next sentence is really bad.
Listen, they went through the back door.
It was her brother.
Game of Thrones.
Entering the house via the back sliding door, he would be absolutely horrified by what he saw next. After calling out and receiving no answer, he headed towards the office in his sister's house and would then stumble upon the body of his niece, Amber, who was laying face down in the doorway as if she was trying to leave Mark and Christine's bedroom with a pool of blood around the back of her head.
I wasn't expecting it to be the daughter.
Yeah. So the back of her head had been split due to a blow from a tomahawk or a small axe. Did you know the difference between those two? Because I must confess, I did not. And I saw one's a more longer boy and one's more shorter, thicker boy. The more you know. Anyway, digressing on the worst part. So his niece is in the doorway. So of course he calls emergency services. And whilst on the phone, he notices that his sister is laying naked in her bed, face up, motionless, and with blood everywhere. The same as Amber. Can you imagine walking into that? Fuck that noise.
No.
Sorry for the swears.
I can't imagine that because I don't want to imagine that.
No, thank
well,
you.
I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
But also, I don't want to.
That's gross. So police start going through the scene, trying to figure out what has happened. They assume that someone has gotten in, attacked Christine, and then Amber stumbled upon the scene and tried to escape before being bludgeoned to death as well. There was no weapon left at the scene, and police were made aware of a broken window latch with a bit of blood on it, along with a jewellery box being stolen. And at first my mind was like, a jewellery box? Why is still a jewellery box? So a receipt from McDonald's was found with the timestamp of around 5:43 p.m. And can I just say, so many articles on this case were commenting on the food, like, oh, that's a lot for two people. Like, shut your face, they just died, who cares what they purchased from Macca's. They literally ordered a meal each for themselves and an apple pie.
Because that's relevant.
Yeah, I was like, they're dead. Who cares what they got from Macca's? Anyway, end rant, the receipts would match up with the window of what was found in the autopsy. So when the autopsies were done, they were able to see that both of the victims' stomachs were full, with no visible food in the small intestine, and they noted that they died before they had fully digested their meal. So the doctor believed they may have been murdered around 7:15 p.m. But that was out of his expertise to say. Now, Mark obviously had not heard from his family, so he phoned a friend to go and check in on them. Of course, the friend would soon phone Mark back to let him know that something was going on at his house and he needs to get home ASAP. So Mark was due back that day anyway, but, you know, didn't hear from his family. So he arrived back home by 1:15 p.m. Also, can we just say 1:15? If you called your friend and it only takes like an hour and a bit, what the fuck were you doing? Like, that seems like a bit of a gap to come home.
Like, you took your time.
Yeah.
Like, something weird's happening at your house. There are police and shit, but...
Just gonna mosey on down. So yes, he was stopped by officers when he got home and was advised he couldn't go in due to it being an active crime scene. So this is how he found out that his family had been murdered. An article came out a few days after the murders stating that the family was brutally murdered and had to be identified via forensic means. And it would later be revealed that police did not think of Mark as a suspect.
Well, I mean, if he had an alibi, right, of being
away.
like an hour away or an hour and 40 whatever minutes away, then you probably wouldn't assume him straight away.
Yeah, story checks out, right? Just over a week later, the funerals would take place, and this would be where a photo or a few photos were taken that kind of became famous with this case and gave me major John Sharp vibes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the picture that was taken by the media was Mark being helped out of the service by some friends. He collapsed and needed help, so I'll show you the pics to kind of get like a real-time reaction.
Why is he dressed like a Man in Black? Like a cheap...
It's like giving me major Peter Griffin vibes. There's one.
Listen, I'm
one.
sorry, but the friend to his left, he could get it. Oh, no, he couldn't.
So what do you think when you see that photo? And you guys must Google the photos because you'll see them online.
I tell you what I think. I think here is a fat potato man who cannot act. He can't fake cry, so he's going to be as dramatic as possible, and he's going to claim that he's so weak from the news that he just has to rely on the strength of his two fellow friends to hold him up so he doesn't fall over. He is a little bitch, is what he looks like. Also, I don't even know if he did it or not yet, but he just looks fake. That's just my opinion.
It does, hey.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you were saying, everyone was kind of like, yeah, he's being a bit over the top, he is guilty, while others thought it was just a heartbreaking photo of a dad who's just lost his family.
Do those people have jobs?
Yeah.
In education? Eyes?
Can you see this image? So the investigation continues and police start to dive in what happened that night. Phone records indicate that a friend rang Christine at about 6:56 p.m. that night, and the autopsy showed she may have died just after 7. When Christine was found in bed, police noted that her glasses were away in their case, the TV was on standby, so it seems like she was in bed, so before or after 7. Now, a few statements came out where friends and family thought this was a little odd, that she'd be in bed so early because she liked to read late while Mark was away and liked watching, certain shows that were on at certain times. So they were just kind of questioning this theory. It didn't seemed to check out to them. Police would later find that the family computer was shut down at 10:52 p.m. So it's like, was she alive or did someone else turn it off? So many questions. There was a lot of gossiping by this time, with a fair few people pointing the finger at Mark, to the point that another statement was released by the police stating Mark is not a person of interest. But my, would that change? After a 6-month investigation, on the 23rd of February 2001, Mark Lundy was arrested and charged with murdering his wife and daughter. A why, you might be saying? But how, Ashley? He was on a business trip. Well, let's go through the how, shall we? Okay, let's go.
Okay, let's go. I was going to do that too.
Okay, let's go. During the investigation, police were able to obtain information that although Mark was away on his business trip, and he always maintained that he was away, police note that there is a 7-hour window that is unaccounted for. Mm-hmm. And police think this may be the window that allowed Mark to kill his family brutally. So on July 15th, 2001, Mark's deposition hearing started. So I told you about how it came out that they had to be forensically ID'd. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because Christine received 9 or 10 blows to the head, with most of them landing on her forehead and face. Her hands and forearms showed defensive wounds, and Amber also suffered 7 blows from the same weapon. So, a brutal killing. Of course, more came out about Mark having severe debt and how a life insurance policy changed shortly before the murders, when Christine and Mark increased their life insurance policies.
Oh, gasp. It could not be him. No way in heaven or hell could he have ever been guilty of doing that.
That's why I wrote motive? ? Oh, and if you thought they had a happy marriage, think again. It came out that Mark actually enjoyed sharing his time with the lady of the night when he could, due to the physical side of his marriage going out the window. And wouldn't you know it, he actually hired someone the night of his wife's murder.
Hired a hooker?
Yeah. Lady of the night.
So, reading a book at the shore and going back for rum and TV was probably not the tea.
Well, literally, what I was about to say. He told police that he hired her from 11 p.m. and she left around 1 a.m. Bullshit, she was there for like 5 minutes. What are we kidding?
Yeah, 2 pump chump, hello. Are you
Come on,
kidding?
1 minute.
What a joke.
So the prosecution is saying that the murders occurred around 7:15, with Mark rushing back to his motel in time for the sex worker. What? No?
Cool.
We also don't know if Christine was aware of these late night visits as well. So it's like, was he cheating, with some hookers and she didn't know about it because she's dead? It's not like we can really ask, was it an open relationship?
And I'm so sorry, what year was this again? 99?
What year? 2001 she died.
2001, okay.
2000. So yeah, it also came out that it wasn't the only time. Like every time he'd go away, he'd pretty much get a hooker as well. You're in debt, Mark. Just get it from your wife.
Not to mention, that's also not legal in New Zealand at that time.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Oh. But also, if your wife's not putting out, there's a reason why. Find the reason, fix it,
Or maybe
move on.
she is.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just a disgusting, disgusting man. And listen, I'm not saying that you're disgusting to use a sex worker and pay them for exactly what the service they're putting out.
Yep.
But if you are married and you're going behind your wife or your spouse's back in general to go and do that and they're not aware of it, you're a dog.
Yeah. The deposition ends after 4 days, and on the 19th of July 2001, Mark finds out that he will stand trial for 2 counts of murder. The trial took place in February 2002. This was a very heavy covered case in the media, and also because NZ hardly has any murders, So during the trial, witnesses would testify that the Lundys were looking like they were heading towards filing for bankruptcy.
Another reason to have a life insurance policy taken out on someone you're about to kill.
Right? So they were really trying to push that it was money motivated, and like you said, with the insurance policies. Mark also took the stand and kept sticking with his story that he did not kill his family. A timeline was made out with police even showing how Mark was able to commit the crime around that 7 p.m. mark and be back for the sex worker. Now, you remember the computer that said it was turned off around that certain time? Well, at the trial, some guy, and it wasn't some guy, it was some
technician, like a tech specialist?
Yeah, some guy was like, Mark changed the time on it to make it look like it happened while he was at the motel.
If he had access to do this remotely, then...
Yeah, because they were talking about something, how he was able to do something on the back end to make the time look like it had turned off at that time. So when they turned the computer back on, or when they looked into it, it said it was turned off at that 10:53.
So maybe he had set up like an auto off?
Yeah, I don't know. Or they were trying to say he was there, but he changed it to... I don't know. It was a bit like, okay.
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. Investigators also pointed out that some fuel was missing in Mark's car, to which Mark had initially said it was stolen from his car that night. He's like, yeah, someone siphoned some of my fuel. Used? Yeah, like they were able to show him to be like, well, you've
because listen,
clearly gone somewhere.
The K's aren't going to change if you siphoned, you dumb... Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
I know. No, but it's, yeah. Also, Mark's phone was switched off. Did I mention that? Yeah, from 5:38 p.m. until 8:28 p.m.
How would he even know to do that, though? You turn that off because they can track you through the cell phone towers? People... I find it hard to believe that someone would know that at that time. What did he do as a job?
Kitchen sink stuff.
Oh, then there's no reason he should have known that at all.
Yeah, well, that's where it came up in the case as well, because they were kind of like, oh, he knew how to, like, he knew a bit of techie stuff. But I'm also like, I don't know, this case is very like, is that... They did find some DNA on Mark's shirt as well. Because, you know, if he did kill his family, he kept his shirt. So 2 tiny stains were found, one on the chest and one on the sleeve. The one on the sleeve belonged to Christine because it was tissue from her central nervous system.
Oh, God.
So frickin' brain fragments and some of Amber's blood on his t-shirt.
Try explaining that one, Mark.
Yeah, you don't get brain matter from a hug.
How hard are you hugging?
I know, it's just not looking good. So 20th of March 2002, after 7 hours of deliberating, the jury found Mark guilty of murdering his wife and daughter, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a 17-year minimum period before he can apply for parole. Now, this is normally where we would end, but no, this case has a little more and was active right up till May 2023, so a couple of weeks ago. The time of recording this, yeah, depending on when you're listening to this. Should have been when it came out. What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, idiot. I take that back, I love you.
I love you so much. Some more information started coming out, and Mark's lawyers pushed for an appeal, which happened on the 31st of July 2002. I found one of the transcripts, and it was stated that the fresh evidence was, and I quote, Mr. Stanley, which is just some guy, saw a man who he thought was Mr. Lundy sitting in a car on the Petone foreshore reading a book about 6:30 to 7 p.m. one evening. He could not be specific as to day, date, or time, and understandably, that is why he did not come forward earlier. Yes, that was in a court transcript. Obviously didn't work out because you don't know the date or time. Like, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
I saw him at some point.
Can't tell you what day or time, but I did see him. One thing I found with this case is as the years go by, there's just more and more and more info that is just coming out that kind of makes you question, did he actually do it? Like, part of me, I'm like, yeah, I think he did. But you read some of the stuff and you're like,
Listen, I'm thinking with the brain matter on his shirt, that's a little bit of a dead, excuse the word, giveaway.
Yeah. No, it's, yeah.
You know, unless that's planted.
Well, actually, funny you say that because I didn't write this in here. At one of the trials that happens a little bit further on, another one, they actually spoke about how, what if it was planted by police? And then police were like, well, you can't actually prove that it was planted, so how do you know it was planted?
But then also on top of that, what's the motive?
Well, I think it was more of a trying to blame him, so they planted it on his clothes.
Oh, okay. It would make sense that maybe if they wanted that case closed,
yeah,
you find the guilty party.
They wouldn't, yeah. It's stupid. Lawyers would end up coming out questioning the doctor that did the autopsy to say that he didn't perform all the duties he was meant to, and some of his statements didn't line up. And some disagreements came up so much back and forth, and that some evidence wasn't shared with between the team's lawyers, blah, blah, blah. Like, there was just a lot of, oh, we didn't see this until 2012, so why weren't we shown this? We need to go back to court kind of thing. Like, it was just a fucking shit show. After spending 12 years in prison, on October 11th, 2013, he was released on bail and was allowed in the community until his second trial, which started in February 2015. In this trial, it was argued that maybe the brain matter on Mark's shirt was just a stain from a meat pie. They tried to say that it wasn't her DNA, it was just a stain from meat pie.
Is that like, hold on, is that like that dude that you had that was like there was the newspaper and it had tomato sauce on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
These fucking idiots. Are you kidding?
Yeah, because it was like a
his defense said
little
that?
stain. Yeah. It was literally a thing in there. I was like, fuck off. And that's not even everything that came up in each trial, so I just kind of picked out the little bits and
To be
bobs.
fair, New Zealanders love mince pies.
Yeah.
Just saying, I love them. But when there's human DNA in it...
Well, they did a test as well, and they were like, there is human... Like, come on, mate. What are we talking about here? The trial took 7 weeks, and Mark was once again found guilty on April 1st, 2015. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, April Fools, but not for you.
Yeah.
This ain't no joke, motherfucker. Again, he appeals, and a hearing begins on the 27th of August 2019. And thank the Lord, it was dismissed. August 2022, Lundy attended a parole board hearing as he had now served his minimum 20 years. Because at one of those trials, in between his first one to now, they ended up extending the minimum period to 20 instead of 17. Joke's on you, motherfucker. So yes, parole board hearing, which they denied his release because he didn't have a safety plan.
What?
Yeah, so apparently there's like a thing where, I don't know if it's because he went to rehab as well or something like that, but they were like, you didn't have a safety plan set up to what happens if you relapse or, I don't know, kill your other wife. And like, I don't know, some kind of safety plan to do with him, because Mark would state, it is rather difficult to do a safety plan for something I haven't done. If you would have just had a safety plan, you probably would have got released.
But I guess what he's trying to do is just maintain his innocence.
Yeah.
And if he were actually innocent...
That's what I mean. Like, you really start to go like, oh. His second hearing happened in May 2023. This time he was questioned about his motives for murder. Lundy replied that it's a difficult question for him to answer because he didn't have a motive for something he didn't do. Once again, he was denied. There is so much more to this case, so definitely go check it out. And I don't know, when I first started this case, I was like, he did it. The husband did it. But now I'm kind of like, I don't know, like just the window of him being able to make it back in an hour and 45 to kill his wife and then come back. And
the issue is, if there genuinely was like 7 hours that you can't really account for, then he would have time to drive back to the house, kill his family, which I mean sucks, and then drive back to that other location. He would have time to do that within 7 hours.
Yeah.
So the fact that that time can't be accounted for is pretty shit. In saying that, does that mean if I were to be accused of doing something and I just so happened to be asleep at that time, that I can't account for those hours because I was fucking sleeping?
Yeah. One of the things that came up a lot in this case is that his story kept changing. Like from what he said at the start as well.
He would change, okay.
Yeah, so...
Well, that's concerning.
Yeah. So originally he told police that they had a wonderful marriage, they were good, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously they were like, hey, you called an escort service. Then he had to kind of come out and be like... How
wonderful is it? And he's like, well, it wasn't that
It's not
wonderful.
actually that good. Yeah. And then with the debt, everything going on, I'm not going to get this right. You'll have to, if you want to have a little look into it, everybody, you can go look. But apparently the day of or the day before, he got a phone call from the people at the Berry Wine, the land that he purchased, pretty much being like, you need to give us $500,000 by this amount of time or blah. So everyone's kind of lining up. You know, it literally happened a day or the day of on her murder. She used to do the books, like... Yeah.
I think everything else could be circumstantial, right? But the DNA and the brain matter on the... I
know, that's what got
shirt.
me. And that it's a brain matter.
Yeah,
and
that's
if you've smashed her face in, like...
But in saying that, from the cases we've covered before,
yeah, that
would be a relatively messy crime. The fact that there's only 2 spots that are there and one of those spots that contains brain matter, to me is a little bit weird. I mean, unless you're saying that is not the shirt he wore at the time. It was
just near.
I don't know. I mean, there's something weird about that.
Yeah.
To me, so I would need to know, where was that shirt? How was it located? Is there any other way that brain matter could get onto that shirt? Like, you would assume that his clothes are in the house, right?
Yeah.
But not the ones that he took with him.
Yeah.
So how soon after he got back, the cops would have...
So the cops were there at about 9:30. He didn't get back till about 1
But
o'clock.
it was when he got home. But when was he taken into custody? Like, when would they have had access to that shirt? Would there have been time for him to set his stuff up in the house first?
No, so he wasn't allowed in. I think by the sounds of it, they kind of took it at the scene as evidence. So whether it was left there is more of my understanding.
And do you reckon there's any chance that cross-contamination could have happened where some of that DNA would have...
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of questions.
I still think he did it, but just the fact that there's a question mark there.
I know, it's a bit like,
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us what you think, dear mung beans, because that was the case of the Lundy murders. Did the husband do it? Do you think he did it? I think he did it, but I've got some questions. All right, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.